knew certain people were going to be very excited about these photos. And so I was expecting, some reaction, but I didn't really expect the mass media coverage that the photos got. So yes, it did take us all a bit by surprise.
As television people, one aspect of it that fascinates us is the type of camera that you were using to be able to capture so clearly this image. What sort of facility are you using?
So this is actually a camera system that I developed myself to capture these images. So what it is, it's the normal high quality camera that any photographer would use to capture photographs. But I turned them into a camera trap. So this is a stationary camera which I leave on game paths and trails around the area. And I've developed a sensor which detects when an animal passes the camera and then automatically triggers the camera. And so what this means is that I can leave my cameras out for days or weeks at a time on certain trails that I know the leopard is using. And then it's just a case of leaving them for long enough until the leopard comes past. And then when it does come past, the camera goes off and I use off-camera flashes to create this dramatic lighting.
So you've captured the images now and there's all this global interest. What's going to happen from here on?
So it all happened very quickly, and actually I would love to try and capture more images of this leopard because really I had kind of a short period of time there and I feel there's a lot more that can be done with it. So my hope is that I can capture more images and maybe work on a larger project focusing on the leopards of Laikipia with a view to maybe doing a book and helping more in the conservation efforts that are going on around leopards in that area.
How are you responding to some of the especially African responses that are saying there isn't really any rarity to this event that took place, and there are people before who've been able to capture these images?
Yes, so I mean, I never claimed that these were the first photos, and certainly black leopards have been recorded all over Africa. But often the images that have been captured have been from a very great distance, or of captive black leopards, or taken with very low quality research trail cameras. And so I've always claimed, not that these are the first images, but that these are the first images of this type, these close-up nighttime camera trap images. And I think, the global response to the images and the fact that nobody's seen images like this before, that's all I'm really, trying to emphasize. But it's hard to always communicate the message, and sometimes the press don't always get the right headline.
You seem a bit unfazed by all this hype. How has it affected you personally?
Oh, it's been a very busy week, very tiring in terms of
I know,
trying
who
to
would have
respond
thought
to
we
all
would
the
be talking to you right now?
Yes, exactly. But no, it's obviously just been wonderful to help, show people this animal, get people, excited and inspired by the natural world. Also, hopefully encouraging people to go visit Africa, look for wildlife in these different countries, and promote tourism. And, tourism really is the best way, I feel, to bring revenue to local communities and to encourage people to conserve the natural world.
Absolutely, you're so correct. You're talking about promoting tourism, but beyond that, what is the significance of being able to make these kind of, not really discoveries, but to highlight that these animals are still there and they still exist?
Yeah, I think it's very important, and I guess that is what I try and do, is I try and show people things they maybe haven't seen before, to get people, to make a connection with people, to get people to notice, because there's so much in people's social media feeds, showing people something that does make them stop and pause and comment and think, I think that's a trigger that can then, trigger and inspire people to care more, or to maybe take actions to help conservation or to travel and support local communities. So that's really what I hope.
So now the thing about being thrown into the spotlight is that we now know you, and everyone wants to know, who is Burrard-Lucas?
Well, so I guess I'm a wildlife photographer. I've been passionate about wildlife and nature for as long as I can remember, really. I spent 3 years growing up in Tanzania when I was very young, and so my first memories are of being on safari. And that's where my love of the African continent and of wildlife started. And then I got into photography much later with digital cameras. When they came along, I sort of got my first digital camera, and it really clicked for me. And my passion for the natural world and my passion for photography very quickly merged, and I found myself trying to photograph animals as much as possible. And so from that point, I kind of intentionally built up the photography, trying to, raise my profile and build a following until in 2010, I was able to start doing the photography full time. And since then, I've primarily worked in Africa, across the continent, really, in Zambia, now in Kenya, that are all over, really.
Well, thank you so much for making the time to talk to us. That was British wildlife photographer Burrard-Lucas, who earlier this week captured the image of a black leopard and got the world talking.